everyone, so today we are driving from Porto to Lisbon. Ever since we moved up to Matosinhos, I don't actually drive my car very frequently, so this is the longest trip I'll be making out of my house. Usually my trips have been less than 100 kilometers per trip, so ever since I've been charging at home, the car hardly goes below 90% by the time I get back home. It is quite interesting because I was thinking I would save so much money because the charging at home is so cheap at about 12 cents per kilowatt hour charging at home. But I don't hardly ever drive, so I don't use much electricity anyways. We're going to be arriving at the TESLA Superchargers. There's only one stop on this trip. I think I might be able to make it without any stops if I drive very conservatively, given that the distance isn't too far. It is about 300 kilometers from Porto. Lisbon's about 300 kilometers. But the thing is, as you guys know from watching all my videos before, highway driving uses a lot of consumption, so it is advisable to charge. The supercharging app shows that I just need to charge for about 15-20 minutes at Fatima, depending on my consumption on the way there, I guess. It says I'll arrive with 26%. I am leaving the house with 100%, so I'm fully charged. I haven't been to the supercharger in a very long time, actually. I think the last time was over 2 months ago. But basically today I'm not going to be charging to full like I usually do. I'm actually only going to charge for the minimum required that the car is going to tell me to charge, and I'm going to simulate me driving as if I was driving a fuel-based car where you just take a regular rest stop to go to the bathroom, grab a quick snack, and maybe a coffee. So a lot of the criticism about EVs is that, you know, the charging makes it really inconvenient and it extends your trip time. In my past few months of owning this car, it's my first EV that I've ever had. It has been slightly inconvenient, to be honest. The range on the highway, especially for long distance driving, isn't that great. So you do have to charge on your trips frequently, and the charges can take up to 30 minutes to an hour. Obviously, I've been pretty meticulous about charging to full, but if you don't do that, you still need to stop for 30 minutes at a time. I would say that when I first arrived in Portugal, I rented a BMW 5 Series Estate. I actually really like that car, 5 Series Touring, as BMW calls it. And I remember I could drive from Lisbon to Algarve and back to Lisbon, I think on one tank. It was diesel. And there was no problems, didn't have to stop, and it was a very comfortable car. Obviously, you can compare 5 Series with the Tesla Model 3. The benefit of having an EV, especially if you can charge at home, anywhere in the world actually, is that it is usually much cheaper than fuel. Superchargers not necessarily. Third-party chargers here in Portugal definitely not cheaper than fuel, especially if you're paying like peak rates and all these extra fees. So definitely check if you are interested in getting an EV or Tesla Model 3. Definitely check what the charging situation is like. Obviously, if you're buying a car to do your daily commute to work and you come back home and you can charge at work at home, then it is extremely affordable when compared to driving a fuel car. So that is my experience so far in terms of cost and in terms of charging and things like that. The other thing is, a lot of people also ask, what is the maintenance like? The maintenance on the Tesla Model 3 and any Tesla in general is that there is practically no maintenance. You just need to replace the brake pads, which last longer than fuel cars because you usually do one pedal braking, and you need to replace the tires. There's obviously no oil change, no regular maintenance intervals. You just need to take the car to the service center if the car tells you that something's wrong. But otherwise, I've known people that have had their cars for multiple years and never taken their car ever to service or anything. So in terms of cost, that is lower. Although, I'm not selling cars and I haven't really looked into this. Apparently, EVs depreciate really badly, especially the Teslas as well, given that there's been reduced demand and then increased competition on the market with the Chinese EVs, for example. The resale value of your EV is usually lower than an equivalent fuel-based car. I cannot validate this right now for the Tesla Model 3, but if you consider all that, maybe the costs of owning the car at the end after trading it in and stuff would be maybe the same, given that you would have spent less on consumption, but then spend more on the car in terms of the resale value being lost. So yeah, I think that's just something to consider. What I do like about having an EV is that when I drive into my garage or anywhere where it's confined spaces, there's no fumes, so it's really clean, and it's very quiet. Obviously, I have been considering that maybe a hybrid is a cool solution for Portugal specifically, because a lot of the hybrids these days, just on the EV range, you can get maybe 100 kilometers, which is more than what I need on a daily basis. And then if I go out of town, then I can actually start the engine, you know, on the plug-in hybrid. But yeah, I think the only downside is that your trip lengths do get extended quite a bit, especially if you're traveling long distances frequently. So as you can see, guys, I'm going to be trying to autopilot most of the way. What's quite interesting about the autopilot is that I think it actually reduces speed when you're above the speed limit. If you look at the Tesla logic here, you can see that right now the speed limit's 100 kilometers an hour, and I've set my autopilot to go at 115. Okay, there's an ambulance behind me, so I just need to speed up and just change lanes with me. The lane changing is very slow on the... The lane changing on the enhanced autopilot is actually very slow, so I actually prefer to disable autopilot if I need to get out of the way quickly. But basically, look, the autopilot right now is set to 124 kilometers per hour maximum. The speed limit is 100 kilometers. There is a speed camera coming up in about, I would say, like a minute from now. Let's see if the autopilot actually slows down. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to slow it down quickly so I avoid getting fined. I'm definitely way above the threshold of getting fined. There is a Mercedes EV behind me that is going pretty quickly, so let me just move out the way. This is how slow the autopilot lane changes, and I have it on Mad Max mode, so it's very aggressive. The Mercedes actually followed me, so it's not going past. So over this hill, there should be a speed trap. And I'm curious to see whether it will slow down. Yes, it has. So it definitely slowed down before the speed trap. That's really cool. So there's a speed trap ahead. The speed trap is over here. If you look over there, there's that big above the Carvalho's sign. There's a speed trap on there. Obviously the cars in front of me have slowed down as well, but the speed actually started slowing down way before that. And it's quite sneaky because the speed limit went from 100 to 80. So it does seem like if you just use autopilot and you've set it above the speed limit, it would actually slow down at the speed traps, which is very useful. When I first arrived in Portugal, the Tesla did not have speed traps on the maps yet, and I actually got fined a few times. So them adding the speed traps enabled with autopilot really helps. I'm not sure if this is an enhanced autopilot feature or if it's a regular autopilot feature. I'm pretty sure it's regular because it knows where the speed traps are anyways. So that is pretty useful. If you're going on a long trip, to make your trip easier and more enjoyable, I would say enable autopilot on the highway specifically, and it would know where the speed traps are, so it would slow down automatically. Obviously, as you enter a zone where the speed limit changes, you have to reset your autopilot maximum speed because it sets it to the maximum speed limit. So if you want it a little bit higher, you just need to scroll the right wheel and increase it. So for example, I'm increasing it to 133 above 13 kilometers per hour above 120, the current speed limit, and it would try and do that if it can, if there's an open space, because right now it's quite tight. So I think the car's trying to be conservative, it's only driving at 100 kilometers an hour. So we are about 1.5 hours away. It predicts that I'll be arriving with 29%. Earlier it said 25%. So I think we can actually charge probably for even a shorter period, because as you guys have probably seen in my previous videos, the charging between 10% to 80% is relatively quick. The last 10-20% takes the longest, specifically the last 10%, and actually the last 1% takes super long. And it's a bit superfluous to charge all the way to 100 because the range difference between 99, 95 and 100 is like hardly anything. Okay, that was a bit of a scare. I was completely fine. I got a bit of a fright when you said oh god. But yeah, so we'll review the range and how much charge it's used just before we arrive in Fatima, and then actually see if we could have just made it all the way to Lisbon without stopping. But realistically, even in a fuel-based car, I would take a rest stop, you know, to go to the bathroom, have a coffee or have something to eat, maybe for 10-15 minutes. So that's what we're going to do in this trip, to really see whether having an EV really, I would say, some people says, waste your time. So what's great about the EV is I left the house with 100%, right? So if I had a fuel car and I forgot to fuel it, I would have to stop at the petrol station to fill up. Obviously the fill up will take like 2 minutes, so I guess that's not really a counter argument. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that fuel cars are much better for long road trips compared to EVs? Let me know in the comments below. We are almost at Fatima Superchargers now, and I was autopiloting for a bit, but then my camera broke again. If you watch my previous videos, you'll see that I've been having this problem for a while now, but I haven't been driving a lot, so it doesn't manifest until, I would say, maybe like 20 or 30 minutes into a long drive. I'm not sure what it is. I might have to take my car to the service center to check. So on the way, I was actually thinking that I would be doing less than 180 watt-hours per kilometer, which is very good efficiency. But I think the first part of the trip coming from Porto, it was pretty downhill, and then it became more uphill, and then also I'm driving a little bit faster. So right now the consumption is 197 watt-hours per kilometer. We've driven about 190 kilometers. I will do a full overview and calculation when we stop at the Fatima Superchargers. It does say we'll arrive with 31% charge left, and I think we just need to charge for like 15-20 minutes. But I'm going to try and do a short charge and see what that looks like. It's been a long time since I'm driving for this long. We've been driving for 1 hour and 41 minutes. The longest I've driven since I've moved up north is probably like 30 minutes, and even then it's like, you know, in traffic over a very short distance. So yeah, I think it's quite interesting. My whole, you know, lifestyle in terms of driving has changed quite a bit. I'm hardly using my car actually. I'm probably driving once or twice a week. So that has kind of also changed my perspective about what car to get and stuff. In the Algarve, you have to drive if you want to get anywhere because everything's very far apart. But if you are living in a more city environment, I'm not sure if you need that much range anyways. I think I got the standard range is the perfect setup for me. But if you're doing long road trips all the time, or if your commute is very long, it usually is best to get the range of vehicles that is enough to cover start to destination, then back to start, if you want to just do one trip, one charge all the time, because that will be the best in terms of time savings. But we will have a full overview of how long I stopped, and I try imagine a scenario where we drove with a petrol car, went to a petrol station, had a coffee, a Pastel de Nata, and then went back onto the road. I mean, without even refueling, because I don't think you'd need to refuel in such a short trip, just to see potentially how much longer, or maybe it's the same, this trip is compared to if I had to take it in a fuel-based car. So the turnoff for Battaglia is up in 1 kilometer, and that is the turnoff to the Fatima Superchargers. Okay, we have arrived at the Superchargers. It says here that if I don't charge and I drive straight to my hotel in Lisbon, I will arrive with negative 11%, which actually means I won't make it. But what I'm going to do is, on the way back in the next video, I'm going to try and drive straight from Lisbon to Porto without charging. I will drive much more conservatively, maybe around about 120 kilometers per hour most of the time, just to see if I can actually make it. And fortunately in Portugal, if I run into an issue where I'm running out of range, there's a lot of chargers that not necessarily Tesla Superchargers, but there's also a Tesla Superchargers in Mielada, which is closer to Porto. So if I can make it till there, then at least I can still charge, so I don't need to stop at Fatima specifically. But yeah, so in the next, watch out for the next video as well. So remember to like and subscribe so you get updated on all our road trips around Europe. I'm going to take this. So basically we have arrived in Fatima, and we have arrived ahead of schedule. I think about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. It says after charging we need to charge for 30 minutes. That's much longer than I thought actually. So I think this is, the estimate said 17 minutes, but now it's 30 minutes. I don't know. I think it's mainly due to the fact that I'm on the road, high speed driving on the highway. 200 kilometers, 1 hour 48 minutes, 194 watt hours per kilometer, and 38 kilowatt hours used. My camera's not working as you can see, but I'm going to reset that just now. In terms of the consumption, 2.7% less than what it projected I would use, so I actually drove more efficiently than what it thinks I would have, but compared to the rated range, 20% more, or 19.2% more. So as discussed many times, EVs are not great for highway driving in terms of the range, but they are great for city driving or slow speeds where you can get super range if you do, under 80 kilometers per hour. So we're going to charge for, I think I get 20 minutes now. And if you guys haven't watched my previous video, I've replaced this trim with carbon fiber from Yeslac, and this is, in my opinion, so much nicer than the fabric trim. This is similar to the one in the performance model. I've yet to see the performance model test drive it, but I'm going to go check out the Floresta restaurant, get something to eat, a drink, and go to the bathroom, and we will be back. Made sure to leave a gap, so I'm going to split with anyone so I can get full speed charging. Plug it in. It's charging now. Let's see. It says starting to charge, and we will see how long it takes. I'm going to go to the bathroom now. It is 12:15, so maybe we'll get out of here before 1:45, and we'll see you on the trip from here to Lisbon. So this is the Floresta restaurant where the Supercharger in Fatima is, and I just got myself a Americano and a Pastel de Nata. I didn't actually eat the Pastel de Nata, I took it away because I was still fasting. I've been here quite a few times and got to meet the people that own the restaurant. And also they sell really cool merch. As you can see, they have the Tesla models as well, and they also have the Cybertruck model. There was actually this at the Cybertruck event for 20% off, but it is quite big and I don't think I like it enough to pay 200 or 160 euros for it. Hello my boy. So I'm back at my car now, and someone actually came and split with me, so I think if it wasn't for that I would have been ready to continue the trip. As you can see, I spent about 20 minutes already because it was about 12:15, and 5 more minutes continued trip. Definitely would have been quicker if it wasn't for that guy coming to split. I don't know why he chose to split with me of all people. And actually we are at about 76%. Let's see what it says. If I just leave right now, I would arrive with 33%. So technically I can leave right now actually, but I'm gonna just play it safe, wait 5 more minutes. So technically I would have waited. Oh, I can leave right now. So that's actually 20 minutes as I predicted in the beginning. The coffee did take about 5 minutes, bathroom break 5 minutes, chill to drink the coffee. 20 minutes isn't too bad. So I'm gonna stop charging now. And we can hit the road and get going. Before we get going, I'm gonna have to reset my cameras because my autopilot wasn't working again due to the camera not working. I actually forgot how to do this now. Under service, camera calibration, clear calibration, and then I am ready to go. Cool. Hopefully I will have some autopilot on this part of the trip, but it says we will arrive in Lisbon at 2 p.m. 2:05, 2:06 now. 1 hour 28 minutes of driving for 127 kilometers, which I think is very conservative estimate. I'm sure we'll arrive there just before 2 with 40% charge left. Obviously if I drive a bit faster, maybe 35%. So technically, I could have charged for like maybe 5 minutes and then arrive with close to 0. I think, it doesn't want you to do that because it doesn't want you to run out of charge. So I'm gonna head back onto the highway now, and we will do a review when we get closer to the hotel. At the hotel that I'm staying at, in the parking, there is a third-party charger, so I'm going to just use that when I'm there. There are no Tesla Superchargers in Lisbon due to regulatory reasons. So Tesla doesn't want to open, or rather Tesla doesn't opt in to the network here in Portugal, which would force them to open up their supercharging network to third parties, so everyone should be able to charge, which would also increase the price, because right now when you charge the Tesla Supercharger, you just pay Tesla directly, whereas the third-party chargers, you have to pay the provider, the utility for the electricity, and you also have to pay a minutely cost sometimes. So the fees that you pay at a non-Tesla Supercharger is much higher. I will show you guys when I charge at the hotel in Lisbon, just to give you an idea of how much that costs compared to how much it costs to charge at the supercharger. I didn't have to pay it because I still have supercharger minutes, but I can give you an estimate of how much it would have been. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong lane. Yeah, how much it would have been, and it's usually very reasonable in Portugal. It's probably one of the cheapest in the world to charge. I was actually watching a video the other day of someone doing a review of the Cybertruck, and they were charging a 61 US dollar cents per kilowatt hour, which is absolutely nuts. It's more than double what I'm paying at the superchargers here when I do pay. Sometimes I feel like in certain regions doesn't even make sense to drive EV. In Portugal it definitely makes sense, since there's a lot of disincentives to drive fossil fuel based cars. So we'll be on the road for another hour and a half or so, and we will see you on the other side. So we have arrived in Lisbon, and it looks like we're going to be arriving ahead of schedule by about 10 minutes, but it's a bit uncertain because, as you can see, traffic could start at any minute, especially in the city. This guy wants to park. So my camera stopped working again, even though I didn't even use autopilot, so it didn't really matter. But it worked for a little bit, but now, oh, it's working again. Weird, it just started working by itself. That's never happened. So yeah, so autopilot, I guess, could work, but I mean, obviously over here it doesn't work in this type of environment. And interestingly enough, the past few days, Lisbon had really good weather, and the weather was not great up north in Porto, but now it seems like Lisbon's having terrible weather, and this morning when we left, the weather was actually clearing up. So it seems like we keep chasing the poor weather. But we are spending some time with some friends visiting us from South Africa. I am about 10 minutes away from the hotel. When we arrive, I will do a final review of the consumption. I was not driving conservatively to save any charge, because it's not like I need the charge for anything else. But right now I'm at 30%. I should arrive at 29%, which is similar to the estimate that Tesla gave, even though I drove a little bit faster, 29 watt-hours per kilometer at the moment. So if you just stop for a short while at Fatima, you could easily make the distance. So I don't think it actually extends a trip by that much. That's my personal opinion. And I didn't actually drive conservatively on the way there to here, because I knew I didn't need the charge at the end. I could have maybe even driven faster from Porto to Fatima. Maybe I would have saved 10 minutes, and then, so instead of charging 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, and then save more time on the way here as well. So I think compared to a fuel car, you're not really wasting too much time, especially at one stop. But when we used to drive from the Algarve to Porto, that was a 2-stop journey, and you had to charge 100%, otherwise you wouldn't make it. That was quite long. It added about an hour and a half to the trip each way, which extends the trip by 30% of the time. So for this type of trip, theoretically I should have been able to just do it in one go without a charge, which we will try in the next video. So if you like this type of videos, remember to subscribe, and you can keep up to date with my videos. But we'll see you in the next shot where we are arriving, and I'll also do a charge of the car at the third-party chargers and show you how long it takes and how much it costs compared to Tesla Supercharger. So watch right till the end for the full summary of the trip. So we are around the corner from our hotel, the parking's over there. I will show you guys when I'm charging, but I might as well do the review of the consumption now anyways. So we are about on time. I took a wrong turn, so that added about 5 minutes, but the last trip was 1 hour 23 minutes for 126 kilometers, 209 watt hours per kilometer, and compared to trip, I actually used more than 13.2% more than predicted, and 15.9% more. So that was a lot more. So I'm going to be charging now when I drop my car off in the parking, and then I will also do a summary of the whole trip. So this is the summary of the whole trip, and then I will show you the charging. Okay, so we have arrived, and I need to actually get the cable to charge at this charger, and I had to park really skew because of this really dumb design on the charging parkings, because as you can see, there's 3 parking bays, but I couldn't get in because that car is obstructing, so I had to park in skew. But let me get my cable, and what you do is you plug this in to this side of the charger. So I have to open this part. This part goes into the charger. This one, I would say this is the male, goes into there, and it tells me that I've connected it, if you can see properly over here. And then this part goes into my car. But obviously it's all the way on the other side, but it's long enough. Let me just pull this open. Obviously there's no button on here, but I can always tap my thing and it opens up. I plug it in, and then I use some app to activate it. So right now it's not charging, but I can use the app that I use called Neo, and I'll show you a screencast of that right now. This is a Mercedes EV, there's a Peugeot EV over there, and then here's my Tesla. How much I paid for 18.66 kilowatt hours. It was 13.44 euros. This one was actually quite expensive, one of the more expensive ones. So 13.44 euros divided by 18.66. This is after all fees. Comes to about 72 cents per kilowatt hour, which is more expensive than what I complained about earlier, where the guy was charging in the US for 61 US dollar cents, because 72 cents euros in dollars right now is about 77 US dollar cents. So the third party charge is extremely expensive. You could find cheaper ones, but you really need to drive around and shop around. But the equivalent at the Tesla Supercharger at that time, because it was off peak, would have been 30 cents euros.